Welcome to Solutions with Courtney Anderson. I am Courtney Anderson, your host and guide for the show. I appreciate you being here today. As always, I want to encourage you to come to CourtneyAnderson.com, come to our show page. Our show page has extended notes. It also has links to many of the things I discuss in the program, and it will have the ability for you to link to rating us on iTunes, giving your feedback, to us, giving us show ideas. This is episode 150. 150. Woo! I want to thank you for being part of the program today and thus being part of allowing us to get to 150 episodes. Woo! Wow, and we're just getting started. Well, we'll see. But the point is, I'm very grateful. And so we're expanding the website and a lot of our infrastructure as this program has proven to be much more viable than I initially anticipated. So thank you to you. I would encourage you when you come to the show page, which again is episode 150, which also has the show title on the show page, that you take a take a moment to look at our sponsors. One of the ways that we're able to grow the program and keep it absolutely, totally free for people to access, download, be part of is by our corporate and show sponsors. So our show sponsor today is actually related to our show topic. So let's talk about our show topic and then we'll mention and talk about our show sponsor. What's the show topic? Why are we here? What's going on? Well, we have a show today that is part of our Help Situation Spotlight series. And this, of course, is an entire series where all we do is come up with programs around your questions and concerns. Community members like yourself say, hey, help! And they give me a question or concern, and then we create a program and try to come up with some potential solution sets and work through maybe what we could do to maybe address it. So that's why we're here. What has one of our community members shared and asked for assistance with today? Well, our specific episode is I keep getting fired from jobs. What should I do? I keep getting fired from jobs. What should I do? So, what people are asking for help about today is they're saying, help! I keep getting fired from jobs. What should I do? Okay, that's a pretty specific issue, being fired. And then the language I think that's really important in this episode that we want to look at is the language where I keep getting fired. Not I got fired once, or one time a long time ago I was fired, or I'm scared I might be fired in the future, but no, I keep getting fired, which has telling us that this is a community member who has had this happen multiple times, and we can maybe think that it's happened in the recent future. The recent future. It's happened in the recent past, and that they have potentially a concern it'll happen again, right? I keep getting fired. So it didn't happen just once, but it's happened multiple times. And it seems like it's happened in a way that maybe their current situation is impacted. Maybe they're unemployed right now and some have maybe even suffering some financial difficulty, right? I keep getting fired from jobs. What should I do? So my first question, of course, well, I don't know if this is evident. I was going to say it's evident this is my first question, right? But maybe it isn't. The first question I have regarding this issue is why? Why are you being continually, repetitively fired? Why? In real interactions with people who shared this with me, let's say that I'm working with them. I'm their lawyer. This happened a lot actually. So let's say that I'm working with somebody. I'm their lawyer, and we're talking, and I'm trying to explain to them what's happening. Maybe they have a criminal case, or maybe they have a civil case like a divorce or child custody, and we're at some point discussing, the business investment part of the relationship. When you hire a lawyer, unless they're your lawyer that either some other entity pays for, maybe the government pays for, maybe they're a court appointed, or some other entity pays for them, and unless it's that or it's a volunteer situation where they're providing free legal services, then it's a business and you have to pay them. And so many times I would work with clients as a lawyer and they'd say, well, I wish I could pay you or pay you more or pay you the bill that you say I'll owe if I hire you, but I keep getting fired, you know? I just keep getting fired from jobs. So this isn't something just, that's not happened beyond our show suggestions. I mean, I've dealt with this in many settings. People say, I keep getting fired. So I ask why? Why do you think you're getting fired? And when I ask that, and when I've asked that to people in real life, usually I get really long responses. So it'll usually be something like, well, I was really doing my best, and then, I was getting a ride with my neighbor to go to work, and then my neighbor, they got sick, and so they didn't go to work, and so I was trying to use, my uncle's old car, and then that old car broke down, and then I was going to try to see if I could ride with my neighbor, and then my other neighbor, they had to leave and visit their grandmother, out of town, and so I couldn't get there, and then I was there, and then the boss, they didn't like me, and then okay, so it'll usually be like a really long, convoluted story. And often when I listen to those stories, it seems to me that the narrator of the story is trying to have a very specific position where they are in some way victim of things beyond their control. So very few people have ever said to me, "Oh, I keep getting fired because I'm not doing what they pay me to do." Very few people say that. What usually people do is they give me this long sort of explanation or rationalization for why they were unable or couldn't do whatever it was people wanted them to do. And they'll usually also say something to me like, but I was there. I was there early, several times, or, I wasn't always late. To, I think, kind of offset that in their mind, they were making an effort and it wasn't like it was 100% of the time, that there was a problem. Let's break it down. Big picture. The reason that we're fired. Now, I didn't say that we were, it was a layoff, because often we could be, the most productive and fantastic team member ever, but there's a layoff, reduction in force, and we just, we're one of the people on the list, and it had nothing to do with our performance. Okay, so it's not what we're talking about. We're not saying I keep getting laid off, right? We're not saying I keep being the one when they have reduction in force or redundancy. That's not what we said. What we said is I keep getting fired. And very few employers, even in countries and societies that are very pro employer, in terms of their law and cultural expectations, employers still don't like firing people. That's like a last resort. So when you have been fired multiple times, it's usually a sign that something's going on, potentially with you. And there's usually two areas that are challenges. One are what we're going to call sort of our hard skills, and the second one is our soft skills. Our hard skills is what it sounds like, the actual content of the job. So let's say that you're hired to be a delivery driver. You drive a vehicle and you deliver things. If you have very poor driving skills, you get a lot of speeding tickets, you hit other stationary or moving objects, then it makes sense that if you're working as a driver and yet you're a very poorly skilled driver, that you're going to keep getting fired because your skills are so poor. I worked and delivered food. I was a delivery driver when I was younger, working minimum wage and slightly above minimum wage jobs. I worked as a delivery driver. So your driving skills are really important in your job if you're a driver. And they had rules when they hired us and said if you get so many tickets, you're not going to be able to keep working there because they don't want to have the liability and the risk of somebody who's a really poor driver out and about driving their vehicle, doing the job, and then causing some sort of injury that they'd be responsible for, or damage or all types of bad things. So that makes sense. You're sort of the harder define skills that are part of the job, right? So if it's a driving and it's a driving job, if it's carpentry and it's a carpentry job, if it's medicine and it's a medical job, if it's accounting and it's an accounting job, like the actual job content, if you have really weak or poor skills or deficiencies there, then you're going to keep having problems. The second part of why people keep getting fired, so again, this is not somebody, oh, I was fired once and it was 25 years ago, but I still feel bad about it. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about somebody who has an habitual problem that they've identified, because it's not a problem if you don't think it's a problem. Remember, it's called help situation spotlight series. So if somebody is getting fired and they don't think it's a problem, they wouldn't have asked for help. They would just be somewhere, feeling good about themselves, having a nice day, and wouldn't be bothered at all. They've been fired. So this is only for somebody who has identified it where they believe it's a challenge or a problem, and they've asked for help, and it's been a ongoing situation. So it wasn't once. It's been multiple times, or it's a habit. So why does it keep happening? I'm saying either there's a deficiency in their skills, the hard skills, actual job skills, or there's a deficiency in their softer skills. And what are your soft skills? All the other stuff around life, getting somewhere, turning things in on time, the way you relate to people. Do you make it hard for people to give you money, or do you make it easy for people to give you money? As, it amazes me, and I talk about it a lot of times in different types of programs. It amazes me as just a regular person in life, and I'll go somewhere and I want to give some business my money, right? Like I want to eat in their restaurant and give them money. Now I could just go home and eat in my own place where I live, right? Without giving any restaurant any money. But let's, for whatever reason, I feel like I want to go to this restaurant and give them money. It amazes me how hard people make it for me to give them money. That's what I'm there to do. There's no other reason that I've showed up at your business other than to give you money. That's it. That's the only reason I'm there. And you would think if that's sort of the basic foundation of a customer or a client, that businesses would be super excited. I mean, how would you feel if someone just came to, the place where you live? They just came to your apartment or house and just, here they are at your door, but all they want to do is just give you money. Now, when they come to your business, they're going to give you money in exchange for whatever goods or services it is, right? So I'm at your restaurant, I want to give you money. And then I come into your restaurant and I'm standing there and I'm super excited because I'm hungry and it smells enticing. And I want to give you money, right? So I can eat some of that food and drink some of those beverages. And here comes somebody who's part of that business, and the only reason I'm there is to give them money. And if I give money to their business and they're part of the business, then of course they're going to benefit by me giving them money. They're not going to directly necessarily, whatever money I give the business, it all goes in their pocket, but they will indirectly benefit, because if there's no customer, eventually the business is going to go out of existence. So they won't get any money, right? So here I am at the front and ready to come give you money. Yay! And here comes somebody that works there. Yeah, how can I help you? Oh. Not that they came over and said, "Oh, how can I help you?" See the tone? It's not even the words. But if you make me feel bad, like I'm bothering you, I've seen people on their mobile phones. I've seen people talking to their, I guess, friends. I'm here and I'm wanting to give you money at your business, but you seem like I'm bothering you, or interrupting you. And then I feel bad. Now I'm embarrassed and feel bad. And in many instances, I'll just go ahead and just leave, because we just started. This is the beginning of our time together, whether it's a restaurant or dry cleaner or a retail store. It doesn't matter what it is. It just matters whether or not I feel like you want me to come give you money. If you don't want me to give you money, then I'll just go somewhere else. I can give someone else money, or I can just go home and maybe I'll just do without whatever that good or service is right now. But I don't like feeling bad when I'm there to give you money. And that's honestly my only purpose. So people make it difficult. And usually when we're on the receiving end of that, we get mad, right? All I'm trying to do is go out to eat. All I wanted to do is check into your hotel. All I was trying to do is, come in your store and buy something. Why am I being treated like this? Now, in different parts of the world, there are different cultural expectations. But there's a similarity to the idea of being treated badly, however that's defined. So depending on the culture you're in, some people have certain types of greetings they would expect. Some people would have a certain type of eye contact they would expect. Some people have a certain type of behavior they would expect. But whatever it is, if it's not treated, if they don't feel they've been treated how they would expect, then they feel bad. And usually when they feel bad, they also feel mad. That's where the soft skills usually come in. I know I've certainly been out places where I was going to give people money, and somebody will say to me, "Oh, I just wanted to let you know I'm still in training, or I'm new, or I've just started." And what they're usually trying to do is explain to you, "Hey, I may not know all the hard skills. I may not know everything that we sell. I may have to ask extra questions or get somebody, that's a manager or somebody that's more experienced to come help me, but I'm here and I'm excited and I'm going to do my best to treat you well." I can handle somebody who's new or learning as long as I feel like they're making an effort to make me feel happy and comfortable about giving you money. But when somebody has really poor soft skills, it makes it difficult. So your soft skills are how you treat people, your communication skills, and it's not just, again, it's very rarely the words you say, it's how you say them. What people call attitude, and then all the things that the logistics of the organization care about. Time, delivery. Are you here when you said you were supposed to be here? Did you do what you were supposed to do? Did you wear what you're supposed to wear? All that kind of stuff. Which is the customer I don't really care about, but because I don't know about it. But I do notice when someone says, "Oh, I wish we could help you, but we're short staffed." Okay, well, does that mean somebody didn't show up? Now it has impacted me as a customer. Why are you fired? The important question is, why are you hired? Again, organizations usually it's the last thing they want to do is fire somebody. Even again in places where it's relatively legally easy to do so, they still don't like doing it. One, most humans don't like being the bearer of bad news. They don't like saying to somebody that you're fired. So a lot of people, and we talk about this in the management magician series and our human resource heroes, there's so much anxiety and emotional turmoil that people go through who are not well suited to leadership positions when they have to say to somebody that they're holding them accountable. And many people, it's just not the right job for them. So they're unable to function as a manager or HR leader or an executive because they're unable to be the one to hold people accountable. They don't want to do that, right? They get really emotionally upset and they say, "Oh, I don't want to be the one, maybe if I just don't say anything, they'll start coming to work on time or they'll try a little bit better." Yeah, maybe. It's possible. I don't think it's probable based on what they've been doing. So excluding the people who are unable to do the job, who are in a job that requires leadership, people don't want to fire anybody. Why do they hire people? Well, you hire people because you mostly have to. There's just more work than you can do on your own, and at some point there's more work than you could do with two people or three people or five people or whatever. And so you just have to keep hiring new people to be able to keep the business, to be able to allow people to give you the money and be in a timely manner and have the caliber of service and quality of product that you want. So you have to hire them. Now, some people will say, "Oh, well, the whole purpose of my business is to hire people to quote, create jobs." Well, it's a side effect of having a successful business, meaning there's enough money coming in to pay your bills that you can hire people and then be able to pay them their wages. But it's not the purpose of a business. Um, the purpose is to have enough income come in and revenue so that you can pay your bills. I mean, to be a going concern. Otherwise, you're just going to go out of business. And so they hire you because they need this. They need the labor. That's why they hired you. The only reason they're going to fire you is, now we're going to talk about things within one context. I am not talking about illegal firings where someone has violated a law, because that's a totally different question. So if someone has violated a law, meaning the people say, I hate people from, your religious group, and then everywhere you go to work, they keep telling you, "I hate people from your religious group." Well, in most parts of the world, there are rules about employment, and in many parts of the world, there are rules that say you're not allowed to fire somebody just because of who they are, their religion or their gender, things of that nature. You're allowed to fire them because of what they do, right? They didn't come to work on time. They yelled at your customer. They stole money from your business. That's what they did. That's not who they are. So big picture, many parts of the world, I can't make decisions based on what you are, because most of that either you don't have control over, and even if you did have a little bit of control, who cares? It's not relevant to the job. I can fire you and make decisions in many parts of the world because of what you did. You stole from the business. You physically beat up and assaulted a coworker. These are things you've done. See the difference? Not what you do. I'm sorry, not what you are, but what you do. Not what you are, but what you do. So I'm not talking about situations where you're fired because of what you are, because that would be either illegal in many parts of the world and or unethical. Because remember, why did I hire somebody? Why does an employer hire anybody? Because I need you to get stuff done so I can keep the money to keep the business open. That's why I hire you. So it doesn't make any sense to go around firing people who are doing the job and bringing in money. That's counterproductive. If I went out and fired everybody because I didn't like what they were, right, the way they looked or their gender or their religion or whatever, some other thing that's irrelevant to the job, then I won't be able to make any money because I won't have any people that are able to do the job. I just need people that can do the job. So if it's a restaurant, can you cook? Right? Can you greet the customer? This is what I need to know related to the restaurant, not related to this other stuff. It's not relevant. If I go out and I hire really bad cooks just because I like their religion or I like their gender, then yeah, I like them, but now they're horrible bad cooks and their food is horrible. It tastes nasty and people get sick. So now I'm going out of business anyway. So that's why it's not in the interest of anybody. I'm excluding all these decisions that were made on an a legal basis and or what I would call is unethical. Just for your business, it's unethical. Why hurt yourself financially just because you claim you don't like, somebody's something about somebody? That's irrelevant. How well do they do the job is relevant. And in most parts of the world that I work in, it's part of the law in some way, which is why I'm there doing, strategic leadership training. And it's in the best interest of everybody, right? So we're excluding that whole group. And I've done other programs about the legal issues. So please go to the Law Lovers Lounge series and look through all the material on our site. Not all of it, but it's a lot on there. But, and find the show that addresses your issue. I'm talking about help. I keep getting fired from jobs. What should I do? So that's somebody, we're not talking about a legal thing, but we're talking about a pattern in practice where they're fired. So I'm arguing it's not a legal thing, but we're talking about why were they fired? It's either because of the job itself or the way or the skills related to the job, right? If it's a situation where you're keep going to get jobs as a driver, a delivery driver, and you're a horrible driver, you keep hitting, other vehicles, and you hit a building, and you keep denting the company car, then my suggestion to you is that you have two choices. You're either going to improve your skills so that you're a better driver, so that you don't have this problem anymore, or you need to get a different job that doesn't require driving at all. Because if you have really weak skill deficiencies, then you either need to fix the skill deficiencies and get your skills up to a high level, right? So you're not fired because your skills are so good. Just like being at that restaurant. You're a great cook and you're on time. They may not like you, but who cares? And I do so many programs on this because it doesn't matter whether or not they like you. It matters how good your work is. Your food is excellent. People come from several towns away to eat your food, and you're on time and you work well with people, so then you have a job. Of course, because you're making money for everybody, for yourself, for the business, for the customer. It's a win-win. The challenge is if you're an excellent cook and your food is delicious and people come from miles away to come eat it, but yet you won't show up. So nobody knows when you're going to be there. So customers show up and, oh, I'm sorry, we don't have any food today, or we don't have the special. I mean, your customer is very upset. The customer wants to give you money, and they're going to, usually if it's really good, you can charge more money. There's price elasticity in there, right? The fancy way of saying that if the quality of, if there's less of this thing that I'm selling and people want it, right? There's a lot of demand and there's less supply, then I can charge more money, which makes sense just sort of logically. So that's the soft skill. Do you show up? When you show up, are you sober? Or do you show up and you're inebriated and intoxicated? You abuse drugs and or alcohol. So now, yeah, you naturally are a good cook normally, but now you're under the influence of drugs and alcohol, so you're there and you're on time, but you're unable to cook. You're falling down, you're unable to do what you need to because you're not sober. That's another problem. In some instances, it may be a medical problem where you need to go get treatment for that, and then be able to come back to work when you're ready and able to perform the work. But it's either going to be the job itself, the hard skills, or the soft skills, which is how it's done. That's it. Any other reason they're firing you, and we talk about this in the legal series and all the other programs, if there's any other reason they're firing you, it's either illegal, depending on where you live in the world, or I'm going to argue it's unethical. But if they're firing you because you're not, you're hired as a driver and you've had 5 accidents in the vehicle, then you're not a good driver. You're not meeting the expectations of the job. If they hired you as a driver and you're a great driver, but you are not reliable, you leave early, you show up late, you show up on time and you're intoxicated. You show up on time and you're sober, but you yell and scream at the coworkers. You screamed at a customer. You hit one of your managers in the head. I mean, these are the soft skills. So what we were talking about is what do you do, right? Because the question is, I keep getting fired from jobs. What should I do? I ask the question, why are you fired? If it's a hard skill, like you're a weak driver, or you're a poor cook, or chef, then you need to go back and learn those skills and some training or program or whatever. If you don't want to do that and you feel like, I didn't really care about this, then the answer is you need to stop doing that job. You don't have the skills for it and you're not interested enough to raise your skills to the level they need to be. So go do something else. Which brings me to this question. What do you want? What do you want? I really want that question to sort of soak in with you. The answer may be that you want not to do these jobs and that you're being fired because, yeah, you don't really show up because you don't care. If you did show up, man, you didn't work that hard. If you showed up and somebody made you angry and you yelled at them, called them names, and behaved in a rational and unprofessional, embarrassing manner, it's because you didn't care. Well, that's fine. I've done jobs that when I look back and even at the time I thought this isn't what I want to do the rest of my life. I just needed a job or income or something and it was available, so I took it. The reality may be that the reason you're fired, you keep getting fired, is because you want to keep getting fired. If you refuse to change your skills and get them to the level they need to be to meet the professional expectations, and your soft skills, you refuse to change those skills, then the truth is, then you probably don't want to do this. Whatever it is, you don't want to be a delivery driver. You don't want to work in the restaurant. You don't want to work at the bank. It's just not what you want to do. So what you're doing is instead of saying that and being responsible for it, you're sabotaging yourself. So you go to these jobs and they hire you because you have so many wonderful skills, right? The fact that you get hired tells me a lot about you initially. You're smart enough and savvy enough to work through all of the labyrinth of wherever you are in the world of getting an interview and a position and getting the call you were the one they picked. So that is impressive. If you have a habit though of, oh, it doesn't work out, well then why isn't it working out? And the truth may be that you either don't want to work in that type of job, you don't want to work in the type of industry, you don't want to work those type of hours. Some people are naturally early morning people. So if they can get up and be at work by 5 a.m. at 6 a.m., they're happy. That works for them. If you say to them, you need to come in at 9 a.m. and stay later in the day, it doesn't work for them. There's some people are the opposite. Some people work really well at night. They work 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. and it's perfect for them. But if you tell them they have to work in the daytime, it's not going to work. You have, and I've done programs. We have so many programs about this, deciding how you want to work. Do you want to work indoors? Do you want to work outdoors? Do you want to work by yourself? Do you like to be alone? Do you want to work around a whole bunch of other people? Do you love crowds? All of this is your responsibility for you to decide, and then go out and work in ways that fit your preferences. Now, of course, people listen and say, "Wow, oh, in this economy and this part of the world or whatever, it's just really silly of you to tell people to go out and get jobs fit their preferences." Okay, look, like I said, the reality is at times you have a means to an end, right? I need money right now for my rent, and you get hired as a delivery driver, even though you don't love delivery driving. You need to be good enough and competent enough and show up enough to keep the job, to keep the money. What I'm saying in the big picture of your entire life, your entire professional existence, that you need to sit and think about at some point, sooner rather than later, what do you like? What do you want? Do you like to work indoors? Do you like to work outdoors? Do you like to work with crowds? Do you like to work alone? Do you like to work sitting down at a computer? Do you like to work driving around? You got to answer these questions because you're the only one that knows. And then, not magically, not overnight, you don't go to the job you're in right now that's an indoor job and say to the people, well, I've listened to Solutions with Courtney Anderson and decided I'm an outdoor person, so you need to change my job so I can be outdoors. That's insane. It's illogical. They gave you an indoor job. What I'm saying is, while you're working, whatever your job is, or you're not working because you were just fired, you need to ask yourself, what do you want? Anecdotally, my own experience, I worked in restaurants. I worked as a delivery driver. I worked as a waitress. I worked in retail as a minimum wage clerk at a store at the mall. I did those jobs and I learned a lot about myself. One of the things I learned is what I'm talking about right now. I learned what I don't like to do and what I don't do well. And I could have said to myself, well, I need to go to learn how to be a better bartender. I need to go to learn how to be a better delivery driver. I could go learn how to be a better retail clerk. I could have done those things, and I still may do that in the future. Who knows? But at the time, and to this point in my life, I realized that wasn't what I wanted to do. When I went home or to wherever I was staying and sat and thought about, hey, what do you want? I started to answer all the questions I'm asking you. Do you want to be indoors, outdoors, alone, with crowds, work in the day, work in the night? I mean, all this stuff. And I sat down and I really did answer the questions. And I came up with, guess what? Exactly what I do now. Now I do a variety of different things now. I'm fortunate enough to be able to practice law uh, in a way that my schedule permits, that is rewarding. So I still get to do that. I get to teach all the areas that I talk about and that I enjoy anyway: business, law, ethics, marketing, entrepreneurship. I get to do my real estate investment, which I love. Um, I'm getting to do this show and give speeches and do appearances and put on shows when I'm fired up and excited and love it. But if you said to me, would I want to go get a job hosting a radio show at a radio station, which I actually did that a long, long, long time ago. I worked at a local, very small radio station, and I was a DJ, and then eventually I got to be like a morning show co-host. It wasn't anything that was, it was a very, very small station. But here's the point. I learned that I love doing what we're doing right now, having a show, talking, sharing knowledge, laughing, keeping it moving, making it exciting, doing voices. I love all that. Did I want to do it where I was a full-time employee of another place where some boss would tell me what time I had to come to my show, what my show would be about, how long my show would last, what guests would be on my show, what music I would play on the show? No, I don't like that because it took away a lot of the things that make me happy, which is deciding a lot of those things. And then over a long period of time, item by item, I worked my way to a point where I could get to as many of the things on my list of preferences that I could. The other thing that I realized, of course, is as life continues, we change. So some of the things I thought I wanted a long time ago, it turns out when I went and tried that, I thought, oh, I really don't like this at all. And then I took that off my list. It's not anything that happens, at the snap of your finger. But if you think about it and you take responsibility for your life, you can begin to influence the work you select. And you got to prioritize what's most important to you. If you have a laundry list of 50 things you want, you're not going to get all 50. Maybe you will eventually. But start with the most important. So if it's really, really, really important to you that you're out and about and you're in nature and you don't want to be in an office and that's like the biggest thing to you, then start with that. Maybe you work in a national park. Maybe you're someone who's a firefighter or an EMT. I mean, I can give you a laundry list of things you can do outside. If that's the number one important thing to you, is you say, hey, look, I just can't tolerate being indoors all day. It's just too much. It's the wrong environment. Good. Now we have an answer. Let's work to getting you to a point where you can get something in the environment you need. And here's my final point in this. It may be that you're actually unemployable. It may be, which isn't necessarily, it's not a good thing or a bad thing. It might be a thing. It's an inarticulate way of expressing this. It may be that you're somebody who just needs to do your own thing. So maybe you're not going to be a good employee anywhere. Maybe you have, maybe your skills are okay, maybe your soft skills are okay, but it's just not your happiest environment. Maybe you really want to be an independent contractor. Maybe you want to be self-employed. Maybe you want to be an entrepreneur. You need to ask yourself these questions. And then you need to answer the question. We've talked about this in so many different settings with so many different programs and speeches. It's all about that thing that I put forward, surpassing your goals, right? And I talk also about the joyful art of business. I talk about this whole idea of how do you feel? Are you miserable every day when you think about your professional work? Does your stomach hurt when you have to go there? Do you look at the work in front of you or the people that are your work peers and think, oh, I can't stand it? And is that the number one feeling you have every single day? Then you're not in the right place. But the responsibility for changing that lies within you. There's nobody else's responsible. It's not your boss's fault. It's not your coworker's fault. You're the only one who really knows, because whenever you get hired in a job, that means you've convinced the people that that's what you want. And that's why I said it's impressive every time you get hired, because it means you succeeded in convincing the people that you're the one. I don't care if there was only 2 applicants. You still convinced them. They picked you. I don't care if there were 2 applicants and there were 4 job openings and you were one of the 2 applicants that were picked. You know what they could have done is said no to both of you. But if they took a chance and said, oh, I'll hire them, I think that they want to do this, or I think they could want to do this, or they might be able to do it. Employers, again, unless it's some sort of very unusual personal charity, they're trying to keep the business functioning. It needs revenue. So if they thought you were going to come in and destroy their business by beating up the coworkers, being drunk, destroying property, stealing their money, they're not going to hire you at all. So at some level, you convinced them that was what you wanted to do, was be there and work with them. Good. My point is, that you have to take responsibility in the rest of your life and ask yourself, what do you want? And so many people, when I talk to them who are to a very difficult point where they're just miserable, I'll ask them what do they want, and then I'll get back these really sort of, you know, um, I was going to say monotone, but the answer is just sort of this lifeless answer. I don't know what I want. I don't want anything. Well, that's first of all, the content is inaccurate. You know what you want. You might not want to tell anybody. You might be embarrassed. You might think, well, that'll never happen, or I'm unlucky, or I'm too old, or too young, or too this, or too that, or whatever. You might have convinced yourself it's not possible, but you know that you want it. So just even if you don't tell anybody, you can certainly, I always encourage people to come to CourtneyAnderson.com. Tell me, right? Write me a note and tell me. Then you told somebody, and I'm not going to be able to do anything with it, especially if it's, confidential. But often in life, to make changes, we have to actually, it's like everything else they say. You have to conceive it, and then you try to go achieve it. But if you keep getting fired, you're getting a message. You're getting two messages. One is you keep getting hired, which is good because it tells you you have a lot of skills and you're able to convince people. The problem is you're deploying it in the wrong place because you get hired and then you realize, I don't really want to do this. So you let it get to a point, worst case scenario, they're going to fire you because inevitably, it's going to take multiple problems for them to fire you. So you do this by kind of letting somebody else be the one that you can blame. Oh, they fired me. But they didn't fire you. You fired you. And you know that. You know that, and I know that. And I've shared in other programs. I've been fired. So I know exactly what I'm talking about. And some of it was because of hard skills, but the majority of the time was because of my soft skills. Is because I had all these other dreams and ideas and wanted to do this and that, all the things I do now, I love, right? But when I'm working a job and it's not at all what I want to do, I show up, or maybe I showed up late. Or maybe my attitude when I was there on time wasn't particularly awesome because I didn't feel particularly awesome about the job. But here's the thing, that was a selfish and immature and wrong path of behavior. I was an adult. I didn't work as a child. I wasn't doing anything illegal as a 9-year-old with a job. I was old enough by the law to work. And I needed to work to get money to have a place to live and be able to support myself. And I should have had the maturity and the ethics to take jobs and do one of two things: accept it as a means to an end temporarily and do my best and do what I said I would do, show up when I said I would, and put whatever attitude expression I needed to on my face or in my voice. But it was indulgent. It was absolutely wrong. And if you took me in a time machine, I'm sure if you talked to me of several decades ago, I would have given you the long rambling excuses. The boss did this or that. Well, maybe not that long because I typically tend to get more direct. But I did that. I'm the one that fired me. Now, it could have all been avoided if I had had a little bit more knowledge and personal responsibility. But it happened. So it taught me a lot of lessons. It taught me, one, as a manager and executive, I know that a lot of times it's very difficult for somebody who's never been fired or never been in a job that they didn't enjoy to understand the mindset of somebody who is in that job that they don't enjoy. But it's never a surprise when you fire somebody. They knew it was coming. And I work with managers and executives to make them more comfortable to prevent this from happening. You got to hire people who actually want to be here. You have to really quickly assess their behavior to see what the reality is and make a decision quickly, so you don't have somebody just sort of lingering around who doesn't want to do this. It's like a breakup of a relation of a romantic or friendship. It's better to just break up. I'm talking about dating, so I'm not talking about somebody who's like, oh, I have 5 kids, and no, I'm talking about just an informal, less, it's still emotionally stressful. But you don't want to hang out with somebody and be friends with them, then just stop hanging out with them. Don't invite them to something and then be mean to them when they're there. Because you knew that you didn't even want them there. Just break up. And it's like that with work. Break up fast. So when you realize the person doesn't want to be there, they're late, they're drunk, they yelled at the coworker, they called you an idiot, that's a sign. Just break up. It's better to do it now than to let it get worse and worse and worse. And you and I are responsible If we take work because it's a means to an end, whether it's economic or it's just interesting, and we think, oh, this would be good, experience or good for my resume, then take it and take it seriously. If we make a horrible mistake and realize, uh-oh, this is not the right thing for us, let the people know immediately. The client, the customer, the organization, the employer, I thought this was a great idea. Things have changed. I'm not going to be able to continue, and do it as quickly as you can. Be responsible. But if you keep getting fired, which is the title of this show, then you know why, because you're doing the same thing over and over again. Now, the bigger question is you have to ask yourself, why do you keep self-sabotaging? What's really going on? Is it insecurity? Is it, maybe it's an untreated medical issue or mental health challenge where there's certainly resources and treatment available? Is it you being narcissistic? Is it you being immature? Whatever it is, you need to sit down and ask yourself. Because you can do this, and there are people who their whole life is just a pattern. Getting hired, getting fired, getting hired. And there are people who do this, they're 70 years old. It's been their whole life. My argument is, as enough, if somebody's happy, then that works. Only if they feel that it's a problem or challenge, which is what this show is, a help situation spotlight, then change it. Or begin the process of figuring out what's causing it so we can potentially change it. But it's the person who's 70 years old that's been their entire life and they're unhappy. That's what I'm talking about. It's the same process if you're 70, or 17. Yet with 70, you just had more time of doing the same habit. And if it's self-destructive, then why are we continuing to do this? We're not getting good outcomes. It may be that you're in the wrong field. That's the hard skill situation, right? Or you're in the right field, but you have the weak skills. You need to go get additional skills training. But you got to figure this out. Only you know the answer. So if you say to me, how do I know it's the right field? How do you feel? Are you excited? Are you fired up? You really love it? You think it's interesting and great and you'd like to do this forever? Or you feel like, I could take it or leave it. I don't really care. Well, then that's the answer. You know. If you think about going and getting more skill development and you think, I never want to learn any more about being, a flower designer. I hate it. Well, then that's the answer. Then this isn't the right field. If you think about, I get to go to advanced school to be a better auto mechanic, I'm so excited. Then that's the right field. You see? We talk about in other programs. You can take somebody with a lot of passion and commitment and excitement and weak skills and get them to a level of competency enough, and it will be a success. They may not be the best in the world at it, but they really enjoy it and they want to do it and they work so hard at it. And they're there early and they stay late and they ask a lot of questions. That enthusiasm and discipline and commitment will take you a long way in life. I'll never be the smartest anything. I'll never be the best anything. I never have been. But the things that I do, I love so much. And I work really as hard as I can to try to get to a level of competency to allow me to be able to continue to do the things I enjoy. And that's what you have to think about in your life. So, as we conclude, why do you keep getting fired? And forget that. What do you really want? Again, this may not be the venue for you. You may not be an employee. You may be somebody who does really well on your own. But you just don't have the personality type to handle, and because you may really crave autonomy. So you may not be the person who does, I don't care what it is. It just might not be the right thing for you if you have somebody else telling you what to do and how to do it. You might be somebody who's not an employee. That's not your mode of work. You might be somebody who needs to be independent. I don't know, but you don't know unless you start asking the questions. The fact that you keep getting fired is a huge warning sign. So pay attention to it. It's not a good thing necessarily. It's not even a bad thing. I'm not putting a judgment on it. I've admitted, certainly, it's happened to me. It's happened because of me. I've learned from it. I hope. The key isn't what happens, it's what we take from it, what we take from our experiences. I want to encourage you, as always, come to CourtneyAnderson.com. This was episode, believe it or not, I am shocked, episode 150 of Solutions with Courtney Anderson. At the show page, which is on CourtneyAnderson.com, episode 150, and put the title in, Help I Keep Getting Fired from Jobs, or any of this, it'll pop up. Come there. Look and see what we've put in our expanded notes. See if there's anything that you want to add, feedback. If you want to rate our show on iTunes, I greatly appreciate that, or anywhere else on social media. If you want to share this or like this or anything of that nature so that we can continue to keep the show going, that would be awesome. And I also want to highlight our show commercial sponsor for this episode. This show is all about I keep getting fired. And one of the things I said multiple times was I said it may be a sign that you're unemployable. Now, it could just be a sign that you're in the wrong type of field. It could be that you're in the wrong location. It could be that you're in the wrong environment, right? That you want to be indoors or outdoors or work days or nights or whatever. But it could also be that just employment isn't for you. So our show sponsor is Ring Central, which uh, I've talked about, and we do other programs. If you do explore being independent or being a contractor, so you still have a place that you get all your income from, but you're not the employee. Maybe you're an independent contractor that works there. One of the things you want to do is set up infrastructure. Just because you're one person doesn't mean you don't need infrastructure. So you need to have a way to contact people that you work with, or customers, or peers, or whatever. So it could be any mode that you need, right? So much of what people do is online. Well, that's great, but you don't necessarily want to mix your personal communication method with your professional. You don't necessarily want to sit there and look at text and think, was that customer, or was that person I went to a party with? Um, Most of us want to have some infrastructure, some formality to it, even though it's just one person. So, Ring Central is one of the entities that I strongly recommend you consider, the type of business where you can set up communications. So Ring Central sets up, it's called Ring and Central. And basically now the technology is constantly changing, but basically it sets up a way for people to, call you, fax you. Some people say faxing. Yeah, trust me. You're in real estate. You're working in a lot of different industries. You're still dealing with faxes a lot. Texting, which everyone is pretty much aware of, even socially, and conferencing. And video conferencing. So Ring Central has systems where it's set it up, especially for solos and small businesses, or even larger businesses, so that there's a way for you to set up a way for people to contact you, and it's very cost effective. So look at go to the page, the show page for episode 150 for this show, and then click on the Ring Central link from there so that we get the credit and acknowledgement that you came from our show. But whether you go solo or you stay as an employee, and you decide, hey, I'm an employee and I love being an employee, but I'm going to start a part-time or small business on the side or on the weekends, or I'm going to stay an employee, but I really just want to step up my professionalism, right? Because remember, we talked about the fact that even though it's not part of this show topic, once you're getting in the door is the hardest part, the getting hired, which is why I said so many times it's impressive you got hired, right? Multiple times. So getting in the door is the hard part. Once you're in there, though, where do you want to go? So you could go like this show. We keep talking about people whose behavior is self-sabotaging, so they get fired. But for the people who want to stay, how high do you want to ascend the ladder? It doesn't ever hurt you to be as professional as possible, to have really good infrastructure for your career, no matter what you are, whether you're an employee, whether you're an entrepreneur, whether you're an executive, whether you're minimum wage, so that you are on top of communication and opportunities. You never know when that one message that you didn't get was the really super important message that changed your life. And it sounds hokey, but I've had it happen, and multiple times in my life where, wow, you never would have thought. Look at all the things that opened up in my life because I took that phone call or responded to that email. You just need to be on top of your life. So strongly encourage you, and he suggests that you come to our show page. I do ask for your support for the show, and that you spread the feedback you have, and or link to it, or let other people know about it on social media. Rate the show on iTunes, and I do encourage you to visit if it's at all interesting to you or any of our corporate sponsors, and of course our show sponsor for this show was Ring Central, that I asked you to access through our page. But getting fired, it's not a great thing. It's not a horrible thing. It's just a thing. What do you do with that? What do you do with the knowledge? How do you use it to help surpass your own goals? That's the question. And I've tried to share with you some potential solution ideas. Thank you for taking part of your time today to join me. And I look forward to you being here for future shows. Thanks.